Well, a win was the most important thing to get out of that match. But, Righty, I just wanted to ask you, I've had lots of other words described, a bit drab, a bit underwhelming. What were your thoughts on the game?
I thought there was some great individual performances. You know, obviously some players not quite up to speed yet, but I think you're going to get that from people in respect of England and the build-up that we get going into a tournament. But I thought for the first game, you know, yes, there's things you want to see certain players improve on, but it's tournament football. The win is most important, and you want people to build themselves into the tournament. Obviously, Jude's done well to start with. You just want people to get up to speed, and that's going to take some time in the tournament. Just take time to everybody calm down, relax.
Gary, how did you decide that Trent Alexander-Arnold played, in your opinion?
I thought generally it was difficult for England's midfield. Just they kept the ball in the first half, but I think Serbia set off quite deep. But I think in the second half, when the game got tough, I thought that they struggled to really get a hold of the game. And I don't think that was just because of Trent. I don't think we've got what I would call a classic holding midfield player that can get on the half turn and get us playing. I think even Declan Rice, we've been talking about it all day. I think for Arsenal in the last 15 games, 16 games of the season, he was in that left channel playing high up the pitch and Jorginho or Partey come in. So I think Gareth ideally would like another player in there that can do that job. Now that's Mainoo or Wharton. But for the moment, I agree with Wrighty in the sense, really important to win. That's the most important thing. It should never be disrespected. England have drawn and lost many games at the start of a tournament. But there's no doubt that there needs to be that fluidity in midfield and that balance in midfield needs to improve, and that might just be them playing together a little bit more and obviously having more games. That might be the first time that three have ever played together in midfield, and it's some ask in a major tournament to do that, as experienced obviously as they are.
Roy, were you surprised about when he got subbed off, Trent?
Well, obviously Trent's in the team. The build-up throughout the week was that he brings a bit of control, his passing range. So when he was taken off, yeah, maybe a little bit surprised, because that's when they were under that little bit of pressure. And I go back to it, if you're a midfielder or you're playing an important role in the team and the manager takes you off, just that element of trust. But I thought Trent done all right in there. I thought it was a pretty average England performance, but there's pluses. There was a couple of players at the back, people like Stones and Trippier, who needed that game time. They gave up one shot on target, and it was about producing that bit of quality. But Trent, it's very difficult when you go into that position. We've seen a couple of mistakes which he made last night, that he got away with it. But that's all part of learning your trade. This idea that players can just go into midfield and slot in there, it is very, very difficult to play in that role. I felt it took me about 25 international games to get settled into midfield. I really did. So now I would give the benefit of the doubt. The one plus I would give him, we talk about modern midfielders. The first option I would always say to midfielders is, can you pass it forward? And Trent does that. A lot of modern midfielders now seem to be negative, sideways and backwards. So he will give you that, but I keep repeating myself.
See, that's where you wanted to see him.
He's got that range of passing,
yeah.
But that's one good ball in an hour. Let's not carry away with it either. But he will have bigger, tougher tests to come. But I thought he'd done okay last night, but there'll be tougher games ahead.
What Jurgen Klopp's done at Liverpool is find a way to get him into midfield from right back. And look, there's no doubt, if you're good enough to play in midfield all the time, you would play in midfield. The reason you're a right back is because basically you've been shoved back there from being either a wide player or a midfield player at some point in your life, and you've not been good enough. I was the same. As a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, I was a midfield player. We all were, and then we got pushed back. So where you saw Trent struggle a couple of times there was when basically it was tight and there was basically with his back to play. To receive the ball with back to play is the hardest thing in football in midfield. We don't do it well as fullbacks. Not even Trent, who's unbelievable on the ball, is comfortable in that position.
Does he keep his place in the next game? And how do you get the best out of him then?
Well, you keep your place and you play. So I thought that there's certain times in the game, especially in the first half, is way forward in the same kind of positions that Bellingham and Foden was taking up. And I was thinking, if he's the creative player, he's meant to be in that space where he's the one that's starting off the attacks. I thought that it's too far forward, and we saw in a couple of those instances when he was back and he had time on the ball, we could then see him then do what he's capable of doing.
They've got to stay calm with it all. Sorry, and because you have 3 or 4 world-class players, when Kane or Foden's having a bit of an off night, players like Bellingham will step up, but it might be Foden and Kane the next game. That's the beauty with having 4 or 5 world-class players in your group.
I think this is something for me, just thinking that Gareth wants to get Gallagher into the team, but he knows that he's obviously going to make unpopular decisions, Gareth. He's not scared of it. But I think there's an element of wanting to get Gallagher in, but he knows that would be deemed as being quite negative. And I think he's gone half road. He's not gone for Mainoo or the Foden Bellingham sort of.
Wharton, you've got to mention Wharton as well.
He's not doing it though, is he?
You know, the thing with it is that you look at someone like Wharton, who's naturally in that position, who can play on that half turn like you want. at some stage, then you're going to have to start.
If you're a
looking at
midfielder
someone
in
like
that squad and you see a right back getting ahead of you at
Yes.
international football,
Yes.
you wouldn't be happy.
What will Phil Foden made of his performance? What did you
I
make
thought
of
he'd
it?
done okay. But this idea that you start taking him out of the team, Phil Foden is an amazing, a fantastic player. He's had a great season. OK, he was quiet last night, but he's entitled to an off night. But don't be writing this kid off. He's got so much talent. You stick with him and you stick with Trent. These are talented players. But Foden, a quality player. He had a bit of an off night, but he's entitled to an off night.
That's the only thing with Phil.
There's arguments, aren't there, Wrighty, of is he playing in his best position there? Do you move him to his best position, or does he need to find a way to play in the right?
Yeah, but I think that
Right.
you're hearing talks about moving him inside to where Jude Bellingham's playing, who's playing very well at the moment. The thing with Phil, we just saw things with Phil Foden that we don't normally see. He was losing the ball. He wasn't like linking up with players like we do. Maybe some of the balls were a little bit sloppy what he's doing. That happens. We can't take someone like Phil out. Phil's clocked the Premier League level. He's clocked Champions League. This is the next level, and he's now got to go to that level. Phil is more than good enough to get to that level. He's just had an off game.
I do feel like that I spent a lot of my England career where there was this speculation on who should play where, with really talented players, who should play in midfield, he shouldn't be playing on the left. And I feel like Gareth's just going through that period at the moment whereby he's got all these players, Palmer, Foden, Alexander-Arnold, and he's just in that situation himself whereby he's got a little bit of imbalance. He hasn't got the ideal players to play in probably a system that he would like, and it is challenging. He has to resolve that obviously during this tournament and quite quickly.
But don't talk about tactics and systems till the cows go home. Foden, these quality players will produce. He had a quiet night, relax everyone. He'll be fine.
What about Harry Kane? He's taken a little bit of criticism, and also people asking the questions of whether or not Gareth Southgate is brave enough with his substitutes on last night, if he was.
In what respect with Gary?
If Harry Kane, for example, is not having his best game and not producing and not getting
taking
involved
Harry-
as much,
You know
would you
what?
take him off?
I'm not taking Harry Kane off.
Why?
Because Harry Kane is a world-class goal scorer. I was very surprised there was a cross that came in yesterday from Kyle Walker where I didn't think his movement to get in there was good enough. But other than that, it was a deep game for him. He couldn't come short and play where he wanted to play. And I was more surprised with Harry that he wasn't doing more of that number 9 performance in that area of the field where you hold it, link it, get fouls, get the ball in the box and be sharp in the box. That's all it didn't look to me. He didn't look sharp in the box. So I'm not dropping Harry Kane.
No, I think Kane and Foden are gold. They must play. I mean, it's not even a debate. I don't think we're talking about. They're just unbelievable players that we're blessed to have.
Don't be surprised if they're producing the next game. They've got too much quality.
Is this probably a good thing to happen to England then? You don't want it to be too easy and to be a little bit, what's the word? Resting your laurels too much.
The only thing I'm concerned about is nothing to do with... I trust the players. They've done better than any group of England players in a generation and for 50, 60 years. The manager is the best we've had for 60, 70 years. It's just the slight imbalance that I feel is in that team. And sometimes it's that idea of the best players don't make the best team. And can he get that blend right and make them into a team in this next week or so when we'll get through this group?
Yeah, so no concerns. Not that you care.
Maybe the saviour's on the bench somewhere. Who knows?
Not in the
knows?
group matches, but the concern is always later on in the competition.
And it's a great bench anyway, isn't it?